Hello and welcome. So it looks like we're getting right back into the Dev Diary swing, and I think this is one of the first ones that's showing updates for the upcoming Pompey patch. Showing more than just what they're fixing. I mean, like, this is new mechanics, and I've got to say, I like it. I like it. The mechanics that they're showing in this Dev Diary, I'm on board with. Okay, so let's just get into it. This will be the first Dev Diary where we go into more detail about what will be in the 1.1 Pompey patch. That's coming out in about June time. Today I'll be talking about some of the changes coming to navies and things we are going to diversify religions. So, as always with Dev Diaries, any numbers should be seen as temporary and are subject to tweaking. So, navies in the Imperator era. Unlike land combat, naval combat in Imperator Rome at release was in many ways inherited from its predecessor EU Rome. That system builds on ships having a chance of ships targeting other ships and dealing damage to them, sometimes even being able to deal damage to their own friends. The EU Rome system also had one type of ship, with modifiers representing the difference in naval design as well as tactics between the various parts of the map, most notably the discrepancy between naval philosophy between the Eastern and Western Mediterranean. While functional, especially for small engagements, felt the system did not adequately reflect the realities of Hellenistic and Roman naval combat. What were these realities then? So he goes into what basically the history behind naval combat is, how we know, etc., etc. Talking about how ships would grow larger, but then at some point they stopped being made, like they stopped making huger and huger and huger ships, and more galley kind of ships came about. So at the start of our game, for the most of the timeline, the trend in the east was to build greater and greater ships, with some truly huge galleys seeing the light of day. So yeah, the use for these enormous ships with 10 sections of rowers or more, and basically they're going into the amount of rowers or the amount of decks of rowers would be what determined the size of the ship. So the more sections of rowers you had, the bigger your ship was. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. So we're thinking, you'd have smaller ships with like 4 sections of rowers, and then like 8 sections of rowers, 10 sections of rowers, being like the huge, enormous ships. But then there's a ship that's like 40 sections of rowers, and I think he goes into one that has like 80 sections of rowers, and I'm thinking these ships must have been truly gargantuan. Anyway, the super heavy ships, which in Imperator is considered anything above 8 sections of rowers, were never extremely common, but they did have a place, given place in the navies of the East, and we wanted to include them and their role, so our rework is inspired by Murray's work. Lovely. So, ships in naval battles and naval battles. So, one of the Greek traditions is now mines bigger than yours, allows the mega polyreme units. For hundreds of years, the Hellenistic kingdoms attempted to outdo one another with larger and larger ships. From the huge quadrireme, a staple warship of the monophthalmos navies, to the gargantuan Thessarconteres, a huge dual-hulled monstrosity rumored to require a crew of at least 4,000. What? That's insane. Okay. The skills of the Greek shipwrights is unmatched throughout the Hellenistic world. That's a big ship. A very big ship. To better cover the variety and use of navies, will be forming a line of battle. As on land, there'll be a first row, a second row, and a flank. Ship types will be broken into 3 categories, and individual ship types will have strengths and weaknesses. Mainly the goal is to allow different roles for light and medium ships based on their usage in the era. Light ships have high maneuver, allowing them to target opposing ships much further from their position in the line of battle and can deal more morale damage. Medium ships have less maneuver range, but are instead more resistant to damage. The wood trade good will now be considered to represent the great amounts of high-quality shipbuilding wood and no longer be necessary for the lighter ships. This is huge. This is very huge. So it means that you don't need to import wood to all of your provinces on the coast just so you can build a navy. Egypt, for example, is going to be able to build a navy without trading at all, which is not the case right now. So I like it. This is great. since these should generally be buildable by the wood that would be available in most cities, even if it was not their primary export. The medium ships, however, still require access to wood, and importing wood helps the quality of the ships produced. Yeah, I very much like this change. This change is really, really appreciated. So basically what I'm thinking is you would have one of your coastal regions, perhaps the one with the most ports, be the one that has your wood. If it doesn't already have wood in it, of course. So you'd have that one that would have all your high quality wood. They would build your heavier ships. And then your other provinces that don't necessarily need the wood would have the duty of building your light ships. That's cool, I like it. Heavy ships 8s and 10s will have very limited maneuver, with the 10s just able to target the ship directly in front of them. While they can deal a great deal of strength damage and probably easily sink any given ship in front of them, they're likely to be swarmed and sunk or even captured if fighting without support against a great number of lighter ships. Heavy ships will, however, have access to 3 unit abilities, more on that below, and since their niche use was more common in the Eastern Mediterranean Navy, they will require unlocking via military traditions. Traditions that do not unlock heavy ships will instead strengthen the use of lighter and medium ships. Lastly, when possible, ships will make use of cultural names. A Greek bireme will, for instance, go by the name of Lembos, while an Illyrian or Roman will be called a Liburnian. I've never heard of either of these names, so I'm just going to assume that it's totally fine. And these are the ship models here as well. Nice, you can see the little ballista on the front as well. That's pretty cool. I'm sure this will come naturally to you after a while, but for now, this is totally... I have no idea how to read this. I mean, this looks like a bigger ship. This looks like a smaller ship, so I'm assuming it's just going to go in a line. But, I mean, there you can see there's 5 different types of ships. I like it. There are actually, I think, more than 5 because we're going into ship types now. So, light ships, high maneuver and extra morale damage dealt, useful on flanks and possibly in the first row. Do not require wood. So, the Liburnian Uncovered Bireme, cheap, very light ship, very quick. It's quick and light and cheap, yes. Used by pirates near our start, but is later one of the main Roman war vessels. Deals low damage against all, but has extra morale damage dealt. 6 maneuver allows targeting ships far away in battle. A Triere, like that, could historically be covered or uncovered. Light ship but heavier than Liburnian Biremes, also very quick. More expensive and takes more damage than Liburnian, 4 maneuver. Okay, so medium ships, 4s and 5s, 6s and 7s. So this is the amount of rower sections as I was talking about before. Better staying power but much slower. Historically these ships would go prow to prow, much more efficient at both ramming, strength damage and boarding. Vulnerable to the sides against lighter ships, requires wood. We've got the Tetraer and the Trihemiolia. Nailed it. Cataphract with 4 rows, more costly and for a long time the standard ship in any navy. Does not excel at anything but is not bad at anything, 3 maneuver. The Hexair, Cataphract, 6 rowers, much slower but still in widespread use for much of the era. Extra strength damage dealt, and it's got 1 maneuver. So, heavy ships, 8s, 9s, 10s, up to 16s and 40s. God, that has got to be such a huge boat. Holy crap. I'd love to see a picture of something like that. Hey, if anyone that's watching this in the comments, if you could like drop me a picture or a link to a picture of a boat or an artist's impression of a 40-deck boat or 40-rower boat of this type, then just do, because I'm curious. Extremely expensive. Huge rams fitted with catapults and siege weapons. Vulnerable to being isolated and attacked from many sides. Stopped being used entirely around the end of our game, but during the Greek era could make up as much as 30% of the fleet. Requires military traditions to unlock. So Octair, heavy and expensive, the war elephant of the seas, takes less strength damage, deals more damage against all. 0 maneuver, so cannot engage unless opponent is directly in front of it. And then the Mega Polyreme, extremely expensive, represents ships size 10 and up, withstands more strength damage, can create a breach on a seaside fort, more on that in a moment. 0 maneuver. Basically, these ships can only murder the one directly in front of it, and it most likely will. But if you've got like a crap ton of boats, just attacking it from all sides, say you've got lots and lots of Liburnians with their 6 maneuver, you can get what? That would be 13. I guess boats all attacking it at once. If you're doing all of that morale damage, you get that down to 0 morale. Boom, that boat is now yours. I like it. And then we've got this naval thing, and I like this. I think they've taken this from Long Game Short, because this is the morale bar, and it's moved from here. And this is something that he specifically changed in his mod. I like it. I like this a hell of a lot. Taking inspiration from modders is always nice. Or should I say Agamide, right? Long Game Shorts is a YouTube channel, of course. So, capturing ships. When a ship reaches 0 morale while not yet being at 0 strength, there is a chance it will be captured. Capture chances will be based on the type of ship that was targeting the removed ship and the removed ship itself. Mediums and heavies have slightly higher chances to capture lighter ships, but since lighter ships deal more morale damage, they will get more chances to capture ships overall. A fleet of only light ships is far more likely to take a higher number of prizes in any given battle. Captured ship is still removed from battle, will be added to the opposing navy that the captured ship belongs to. Lovely. And I said all of those words wrong. Capturing, not captured, of course. So, Naval Tactics. I like this. There are now tactics for navies as well. It doesn't matter that it is the same sort of system as they use for land combat. It's totally fine by me. I like it. It's good. It's good. So we've got frontal assault, naval envelopment, close ranks, harassment, and probing attack. And I like that they're all kind of sea creatures there as well. That's pretty cool. So, if only I knew how to register these, be able to say like, okay, so frontal assault, it's these two middle ones that don't get any benefit from it, but the very light and the very heavy do like it. Naval envelopment is a bit of light and a bit of medium. Close ranks, it's all over the place. Harassment, the very lights love it, and so do the very heavy. And then probing attack, the very light and the mediums like it. I'm sure there's going to be a meta for the best navy composition, but I think it's going to take quite a while to find it. And as long as that meta isn't just spam this very singular type of ship, then I'm totally happy. If it requires a diverse fleet, totally on board. Totally on board. Alright. With more ship types available in the tactics system, is going to be used at sea as well. Depending on your composition, different tactics will have varying efficiency. Choice of tactic can also affect how likely the battle is to result in capture of ships. Yeah, I think maybe one of these, with what's it called, the shock action, it had an extra variable that was more damage done to both sides, and I assume that is going to be the same case with some of these, like maybe naval envelopment has an extra modifier in this tooltip saying chance to capture ships plus 10% or something. That would be pretty cool. Naval power projection unit abilities. This is interesting. So if you got like a super huge ship, you'll be able to use some of these. I assume light ships also have their own kind of stuff. But look, unit ability that can be used by any navy that has 5 heavy ships in it. Takes direct control over an unfortified port. That's awesome. Useful for establishing a beachhead before a full-on naval invasion. So you establish it, and then you can just straight up land your army on the land. Of course, you can dock your navy in the port that you've just taken, instead of having to slowly, march your dudes off the boats. That's awesome. Port raid. Unit ability that can be used on a fortified port with an ongoing siege by a navy that has 1 heavy ship above 95 strength in it. Rates a breach immediately. Reduces the strength of the heavy ship by 30%. I feel like this is a bit more situational. I'm not sure how often I'll be using this one. Unit ability that can be used on a fortified port with 1 fort level by a navy that has 1 mega polyreme in it at full strength. Reduces that fort by 1 level and reduces strength of the hyper galley to 20%. So it needs 1 fort level. It reduces by 1 level. Does this mean we can straight up destroy forts? Because if so, I want me a mega polyreme. I want me like 5 mega polyremes. That's awesome. So Naval Range is now going to be a thing, and I'm fine with that. I think it was kind of silly that there was no naval range before. So, all countries will now have a naval range calculated from their closest owned port. While naval range will be somewhat forgiving, ships and navies that go outside of the naval range will take heavy attrition. Yeah, fine. I would say I would prefer a system where it is time spent at sea. But it's fine, I guess. It's totally fine. I assume this is, yes, Carthage. So, interesting that Carthage owns this, but they can't get into the Adriatic at all. Interesting. Very interesting, okay. And the reason it looks so pockmarked here is because obviously not every coastal city has a port, so only, I think it's pockmarking the ones with a port. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Navigable rivers. Okay, so work in progress screenshot of navigable rivers. The rivers will have a different look, more clearly show them as navigable, though they do not right now. Okay, so while most rivers would not have been fit for galleys of the era to make much use of them, some rivers will now be navigable. For land units, such a river will have to be crossable at a fording point similar to straits. Land provinces adjacent to a great river will also have an increased population capacity, more on that in a later dev diary. I think this really buffs Egypt, especially. I mean, there was a case when Antigonus was coming to invade Egypt. Ptolemy basically shadowed his army, right? So Antigonus came from up in Syria area, came marching down, and he came to the Nile, and he was marching across down this path, up down the river, the part of the Nile Delta, and Ptolemy basically shadowed him the entire way. Anytime he was trying to cross, Ptolemy would be exactly on the other side, and he just followed him all the way down, and if he tried to cross, he would have lost. He had the larger army, but there was nothing he could do. And I'm thinking that's going to be the same here. That exact situation is going to be able to be replicated, and that makes me quite excited. One thing I'm curious about is, you see this little riverlet here? This goes from obviously the Nile, and it goes out into, is it the Red Sea, the Dead Sea, the Arabian Sea, the sea that goes into, you can go to India, right? I'm assuming that won't be navigable, because otherwise that's basically the Suez Canal 2 millennia early. So I'm assuming that's not going to be the case, but that would be also pretty cool if it was like only really small boats can go down this particular river, and if you have one of these, mega polyreme things, then you can't go down rivers that are thinner than the Nile. Obviously, we're going to have the Danube is going to be one of them. I assume the Rhine is going to be another one. But yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see which ones are going to be navigable. So, naval terrain. As soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, so we're going to have inland sea, we're going to have, deep ocean sea, and it's going to be pretty much the same as in EU4. But no. So, not all seas are created equal. In Pompey Patch, there'll be 3 different terrain types, which will also have an effect on which ships are more efficient there, and in some cases may confer a defender advantage. So, the open sea, there is no combat modifier. A coastal sea, which is right obviously here, used in archipelagos and areas adjacent to land, defender advantage. And then river terrain, navigable rivers will favor the defender and greatly favor lighter ships. That's awesome, right? It's not only is it, oh yeah, your galleys will get a 50% damage boost, blah blah blah. It's like, combat bonuses, negative rolls and stuff like that. It's, I think that's a more interesting system, as well as it being not a case of, oh, the entire med is a coastal sea. It's like everything that is actually coastal is a coastal sea, and everything that isn't coastal is not. Although I'm curious as to why the sea around Malta isn't. Maybe it's just pure deep water around Malta. I don't know specifically. Might be the case. I don't know. So, to summarize these changes to naval battles, the goals we aim for in naval combat is to be more dynamic. I think they've solved that. And for what type of navy you want to build, more of a choice independent on your circumstances. We also want to have a stronger relation to how naval battles were fought and theorize in the era, and make it possible for navies to play a role in projecting your military ability overseas, as was done by the successor commanders such as Demetrius Poliorcetes. Nailed it. If you want to spend resources on it, you should also be able to build a naval force adept at capturing islands and ports, which should be especially useful in the Aegean, making maintaining a navy more meaningful both offensively and defensively. Yeah, so I'm quite happy with the changes here. So this video has been going on for 20 minutes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this dev diary in half. I'm going to upload them both pretty much simultaneously, so if you've just finished watching this video, there should be another one on the other half of the dev diary which talks about omens and religion changes in the Pompey patch. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to click the like button, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.